Let's have a real conversation for a second. Here's something most women don't realize. Most dating advice tells you to look for obvious signs. Constant texting, compliments, attention, effort. But that's exactly why it's not working. Because when a man is really catching feelings, he doesn't always become obvious. He becomes different. And if you don't understand what that different looks like, you'll either miss it completely, or worse, misread it and push him away. Here's the truth no one says clearly. A man catching feelings doesn't act like a man chasing. He acts like a man adjusting his emotional world around you. And that shift? It's subtle, psychological, and incredibly easy to misunderstand. So today, I'm going to show you something deeper. A hidden mechanism inside a man's mind that explains everything you've been confused about. I call it the emotional investment switch. This is the moment a man stops seeing you as just an option and starts subconsciously integrating you into his life. Not because you forced him, not because you chased him, but because something about you triggered a shift in how he feels. And once that switch starts turning on, he can't go back to being neutral about you. But here's where it gets tricky. That switch doesn't show up the way you think. It doesn't scream. It whispers. And if you're only looking for loud signs, you'll completely miss it. So let's break it down. Sign number 1. His behavior becomes slightly inconsistent, but emotionally deeper. This is the sign that confuses almost every woman. Because you've been told your whole life, if he likes you, he'll be consistent. But here's the part no one explains. Consistency belongs to men who are certain. But a man who is catching feelings? He's not fully certain yet. He's feeling more than he expected, and that creates internal tension. So what happens? He starts moving in waves. One moment, he's fully present, texting you with depth, asking real questions, being warm, engaged, even a little vulnerable. And just when you start to feel that connection, he pulls back slightly. Not completely. Not disappearing, just less intense. And your mind immediately goes, wait, what changed? Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? No. What you're actually witnessing is something far more important. You're watching a man process emotions he didn't plan to feel. See, when a man is casually interested, everything is easy. There's no pressure, no emotional weight. But when feelings start growing, something shifts internally. He starts thinking, why do I care this much? Why is she on my mind like this? What does this mean? And instead of leaning in harder, he pauses, not to leave you, but to understand himself. This is what I call emotional recalibration. It's when he steps back slightly to make sense of the emotional intensity building inside him. And here's the part most women get wrong. They react to this moment. They chase. They question. They try to fix the distance. But that reaction? It breaks the natural rhythm of the emotional investment switch. Because now, instead of feeling his emotions freely, he feels pressure. And pressure makes men retreat, not connect. Let me give you a real-life scenario. Imagine this. You're texting late at night. The conversation gets deeper than usual. He opens up a little. You open up too. There's a moment where everything feels real. And before going to sleep, he sends something like, I like talking to you, it's different. That message stays in your mind. It feels meaningful. But the next day, he's quieter. Still there. Still replying. But not with the same intensity. And now you're confused. But here's what's actually happening inside him. That moment the night before, it hit him. And now his brain is catching up with his emotions. He's thinking, did I say too much? Am I getting attached? Where is this going? So he slows down slightly, not to lose you, but to regain emotional balance. And this is where high-value awareness changes everything. Instead of reacting emotionally, you stay grounded. You don't chase the intensity he showed yesterday. You allow space for the connection to breathe. Because real feelings don't grow in pressure. They grow in space and emotional safety. And here's the deeper truth. If a man can feel something strong for you, step back, process it, and then come back again. That's not inconsistency. That's emotional depth in progress. Men who feel nothing don't pull back to think. They just drift away. But a man who is starting to feel something real, he pauses because it matters. So don't panic at the shift. Understand it. Because sign number 1 isn't about him being confusing. It's about him being affected by you more than he expected. And that's where everything begins. Sign number 2. He remembers the small things you didn't think mattered. A man who is casually interested will listen to you. But a man who is catching feelings? He starts paying attention in a different way. Not just hearing your words, but storing them. Because emotionally, you're becoming significant. And when someone becomes significant, the brain naturally starts tagging details connected to them as important. This is where attraction quietly turns into attachment. You'll notice it in subtle moments. Moments you didn't even think twice about. You might casually mention something like, "I hate waking up early, mornings are just not my thing." It's a throwaway comment. You don't expect it to matter. But a few days later, he says, "I didn't text you earlier, I know you hate mornings." And suddenly you pause. Because that wasn't random. That was remembered. And that's the difference. A man who is just passing time with you doesn't build a mental file about you. But a man who is catching feelings? He builds a quiet map of who you are. What you like. What affects you. What makes you smile. What stresses you. Because subconsciously he's thinking, if she matters, I need to understand her. Let's go deeper into this. When emotional investment starts forming, the brain shifts from surface-level interaction to pattern recognition. He starts noticing the way your tone changes when you're tired, the exact kind of humor that makes you laugh, the small habits you didn't even realize you have, the difference between when you're okay and when you're actually okay. And here's the part that hits differently. He doesn't just remember happy things. He remembers your discomfort too. If you once mentioned being stressed about something, he checks in later. If you said you had a bad experience in the past, he avoids repeating it. If something bothered you, he becomes more careful around it. That's not surface-level attraction. That's emotional awareness. And men don't naturally operate like that unless something deeper is happening inside them. Let's look at a real-life scenario. You tell him one evening, "I've been really overwhelmed lately, work is just a lot." It's a simple statement. You're not asking for anything. You're just sharing. A man who isn't emotionally invested might respond in the moment. "Yeah, that sucks. Hope it gets better." And that's it. But a man who is catching feelings? He revisits it. The next day, he might say, "How was work today? Still stressful." Or even, "Did things calm down a bit or still crazy?" That follow-up? That's everything. Because it shows continuity. It shows you stayed in his mind after the conversation ended. And that's one of the clearest signs the emotional investment switch is turning on. Now here's where most women accidentally weaken this dynamic. They overlook it. They ignore it. Or they downplay it because it doesn't look dramatic. But real emotional connection is not built on grand gestures. It's built on consistent awareness of each other's inner world. And this is exactly what you're seeing here. He's becoming aware of you, not just physically, not just conversationally, but emotionally. And the more he remembers, the more he understands, the more he connects. Because understanding creates attachment, and attachment creates feelings. So when a man starts remembering the small things, don't brush it off. Don't assume it's just basic. Because most men don't do this unless something inside them is shifting. And if he's doing it consistently, then you're no longer just someone he talks to. You're someone he's starting to feel. Sign number 3. He invests time and effort, even when there's no immediate reward. This is where things start shifting from interest to something deeper. Because when a man is only casually into you, his effort is usually tied to outcome. He texts when he's bored. He calls when it's convenient. He shows up when it benefits him. There's always a subtle exchange happening in his mind. What do I get from this? But when he starts catching feelings, that internal question slowly disappears, and something else replaces it. I just want to be around her. That's the shift. That's the emotional investment switch moving from logic to emotion. You'll start noticing that he gives his time in ways that don't always make sense on paper. He stays on the phone longer than he planned, even when he's tired. He helps you with something small, even when he gains nothing from it. He adjusts his schedule slightly just to see you for a short time. Not in a dramatic, over-the-top way, but in small, consistent ways that quietly say, "You matter more than convenience." And here's the psychology behind it. Time is the one resource people protect the most. So when someone starts giving it to you, freely, it means you're becoming important in their internal world. Let me give you a scenario. He has a busy day. He could easily just text you later. But instead, he calls you for 10 minutes in between things. Not because he has to, not because you asked, but because something in him wanted that connection. That's not obligation. That's emotional pull. And the deeper truth is this. A man doesn't consistently invest time in a woman he feels nothing for. Effort without immediate reward is one of the clearest signs of growing feelings. Sign number 4. Your energy starts affecting his mood. This is where things become powerful and a little scary for him. Because now it's not just about liking you. It's about being affected by you. When a man isn't emotionally invested, he stays neutral. You reply late? He doesn't care. You're distant? He barely notices. Your mood shifts? It doesn't reach him. But when he's catching feelings, your emotional presence starts influencing his internal state. And sometimes he won't even understand why. You'll notice it in small shifts. If you're warm and playful, he becomes more relaxed. If you pull back slightly, he feels unsettled. If your tone changes, he picks up on it immediately. And here's the key. It's not always logical. It's emotional. He might not say, "Hey, something feels off with you," but his behavior will reflect it. He might check in more. He might try to re-engage the conversation. He might subtly try to bring the connection back to how it felt before. Why? Because now, your energy matters to him. And this is where attachment begins forming. Let's make this real. Imagine you usually text him with a certain warmth. But one day, you're a little more distant. Short replies. Less emotion. You didn't do it intentionally. But he feels it. And suddenly, he becomes slightly more attentive. He asks more questions. He tries to keep the conversation alive. Not because he's chasing, but because something in him is saying, "Something changed and I don't like it." That discomfort? That's emotional dependency starting to form. And that only happens when feelings are growing. Sign number 5. He starts opening up, slowly, but meaningfully. This is one of the most underrated signs. Because a lot of women expect emotional openness to be instant. But with men, it doesn't work like that. A man who is just casually interested will keep things light. Surface-level conversations, jokes, flirting. Nothing too deep. Because depth requires vulnerability. And vulnerability requires emotional safety. But when he's catching feelings, he starts lowering his guard. Not all at once, but in layers. At first, it's small things. He shares something about his day, but with more detail. Then, gradually, he starts revealing how he feels about things. His stress, his frustrations, his past experiences. Even moments where he wasn't at his best. And here's what's really happening beneath the surface. Every time he opens up, he's running a silent test. Is it safe to be real with her? Your reaction matters more than you think. If you respond with judgment, pressure, or emotional intensity, he pulls back. But if you respond with calm understanding, he opens up more. Because now you've become a safe space. And safety is what allows feelings to deepen. Let's look at a scenario. He tells you something slightly personal, maybe about a past relationship or a mistake he made. It's not a huge confession, but it's real. If you react like, "Why would you do that?" or "That's a red flag," he shuts down. But if you say, "That must have been hard. I get why you felt that way," he relaxes. And in that moment, something powerful happens. He associates you with emotional safety. And once a man feels safe with you, he starts attaching to you. Sign number 6. He starts including you in his future, in subtle ways. This is one of the clearest indicators that something deeper is forming. Because when a man sees you as temporary, he only focuses on the present. But when he starts catching feelings, you begin appearing in his mental future. Not in a big, dramatic way. He's not planning your life together, but in small, natural ways. He starts saying things like, "We should go there sometime. You'd love this place. Next time we hang out, you should come with me when I go there." Pay attention to that language. We. Next time. You should come. That's not accidental. That's his brain creating continuity with you. And this matters more than you think. Because people don't subconsciously plan future moments with someone they don't care about. Let's make it real. He sees something, a restaurant, a movie, an event. And instead of just thinking about himself, his first thought is, "She would like this." That's emotional integration. You're becoming part of his experiences, even when you're not physically there. And once that starts happening, you're no longer just someone he's talking to. You're someone he's starting to build moments around. Sign number 7. He becomes aware of the possibility of losing you. This is where everything shifts. Because this is the moment feelings turn into emotional risk. A man who isn't invested doesn't think about losing you. Because losing you doesn't cost him anything emotionally. But a man who is catching feelings, he starts noticing your absence, even when you're still there. If your energy changes, he feels it. If you pull back slightly, he notices. If your attention isn't as available, it affects him. And here's the key. He might not say it directly, but his behavior will show it. He might reach out more often, try to keep conversations going, become slightly more attentive, put in more effort to reconnect. Why? Because subconsciously, a new thought has entered his mind. I don't want to lose her. And that thought only appears when emotional investment is real. Let's look at a scenario. You get a little busier. You're not as available as usual. You're not ignoring him, just less present. A man who isn't emotionally invested, he drifts. But a man catching feelings, he leans in. Not aggressively, but noticeably. Because now your presence has value. And your absence creates a gap. And that gap, he wants to close it. Now let's ground this for a second, because this is where a lot of women get it wrong. Don't confuse emotional processing with emotional unavailability. Those are not the same thing. A man taking a step back to understand what he feels is very different from a man who simply cannot show up for you. And don't confuse depth with inconsistency that actually hurts you. There's a difference between someone who's adjusting to new emotions and someone who's leaving you confused all the time. Also, don't confuse potential with reality. Just because something could become meaningful doesn't mean it already is. Yes, these signs matter, but only when they show up consistently over time. Not once. Not occasionally. Patterns are what tell the truth. Always. And this is where everything starts to change for you. You have to stop trying to force clarity so early. Stop asking questions that the connection itself hasn't had time to answer yet. Stop trying to label something that's still forming. Because when you rush the process, you don't speed it up, you interrupt it. You break the natural emotional buildup that needs space to grow. Instead, just observe. Stay grounded in yourself. Let his actions reveal where he's actually going emotionally. Because a man who is truly catching feelings will move toward you. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe not instantly. But in a way that feels natural and real, not forced. And this leads to a deeper shift in who you are. You don't chase signs anymore, you recognize them. You don't look for constant reassurance, you start reading energy. You stop trying to force a connection into something, and instead you allow it to grow into what it naturally becomes. Because the woman who attracts real, genuine feelings isn't sitting there hoping to be chosen. She's paying attention to who is consistently choosing her. And that energy changes everything. That's what makes a man shift from simply thinking, "I like her," to feeling something deeper, like, "I don't want to lose her." So if you've been feeling confused lately, if his behavior feels slightly different, or if something about him feels deeper, but you couldn't quite explain it before, now you can. Because when a man starts catching real feelings, he doesn't just show interest on the surface. He starts changing in subtle ways around you. And that change, that's the signal you've been missing.